What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV, aka Darth Apocalypse. So let's go forward with this, man. So you guys remember, might have been going on 2 weeks ago now, maybe, when Kevin Durant made headlines that, in his opinion, winning an MVP is, I guess, more valuable than winning an NBA championship. And from what I could tell, the majority of people went in on KD for that opinion. Most people still value NBA championships over individual statistics. And the general consensus is that KD, in essence, kind of hurt his own stock with that statement, because if you're saying an MVP is more important than winning a championship, then why did you leave the Thunder to go ring chase? So clearly, it's people who, to me, it's athletes that don't really truly value winning. And I think KD understands that his lack of championship success before or after the Warriors hurt his case and strengthened our belief that he only won those championships because he was on arguably the most loaded NBA roster team in history, especially when it pertains to starting lineup. But someone agrees with KD's assertion, and this person is, unsurprisingly, Tracy McGrady. So he was on this podcast and he co-hosts with a former NBA player, Vince Carter. And this is what Tracy McGrady had to say about this.
KD was on the Fred VanVleet podcast, and he was talking about regular season MVP holds more weight than winning a championship. What are your thoughts on that? Regular season MVP holds more weight than an NBA championship. And the reason I'm asking you that,
regular season MVP holds more weight
than winning a championship.
Hell yeah.
So why wouldn't it?
Why wouldn't it?
Explain that, though. Because everybody, at the end of the day, you think about this. When we talk about the totality of a player's career, and even when you talk about Hall of Fame, and when you talk about the best players, the first thing they say, but he didn't get a ring, or he got a ring.
Name the 10th or the 11th player on the Chicago Bulls or the Los Angeles Lakers or the Detroit Pistons or the Boston Celtics. Who are they? Name any of those teams. Name me the 11th or the 12th guy.
You want me to?
Just name one.
I mean, I can't right now.
All right, you can't even think of him. He got a ring.
Yeah.
And you can't even think of him. He has a ring. But does he have an MVP? Can he get an MVP? Absolutely not. No. So, yes, the MVP of the regular season has more weight than a championship. Because it's of course the whole team. This is not just team, but it's ownership, it's management, it's health, it's all this shit that plays into winning a championship. So yeah, I mean, MVP, bro, that's you putting in some work
against all of the other great players of that season.
That's playing the same schedule, the same 82 games. You playing the same teams 3 and 4 times, sometimes 2. So Come on, man. No, bro. I'm going with the MVP. We all want to win a championship, but that's a collective thing. That MVP,
that's individual.
Yeah,
getting it done. I'm not mad at that.
I mean, look, man. Tracy McGrady, Hall of Famer. Some people say he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. I just think he shouldn't have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. But then again, the year in which he went in was arguably the weakest year in induction history. So it is what it is. Vince Carter, first ballot Hall of Famer. But they both have something in common, and that is they never won a championship. And, you know, I noticed that a lot of these guys who have these opinions, outside of KD, who has another reason to say this, what he's saying, they never won championships. And to be honest with you, going back to KD, it's interesting that KD says that it's more valuable to win an MVP than win a championship because he knows himself that those championships were fraudulent and they don't hold any real weight for him because they could have won championships without him. They did before and they did it afterwards. So he knows those championships, nobody really respects them shits. But look, man, when you look at the top 10 to 15 players in NBA history, especially the top 10, the consensus top 10, when you got Jordan and you got, you know, Kareem and Wilt and Hakeem and Shaq and Kobe and Bird and Magic and Oscar, Duncan, Shaq, and some people like to put it in that role player that I'm not going to name. When you look at all of these players that I named, right, that are in the consensus top 10, what do they all have in common? Because we can argue that, you know, some of these guys didn't win enough MVP awards. I think all of them won at least one MVP award. But they all also won championships. And I know that Tracy brings up, the 11th or 12th guy on the NBA roster, but I didn't take what KD said as you're comparing, you know, Dirk Nowitzki to fucking, you know, Derek Martin or something. I didn't take it like that. I'm thinking he's taking, if you have two similarly skilled players who are at the peak of their powers, and one of them has the MVP award or wins the MVP award, but in his prime fails to win a championship, and even as a failed to win a championship for the rest of his career, versus the guy that never won the MVP, but he won a championship. Most people are going to remember that guy for winning a championship. When we think of Dirk Nowitzki, when we think of Dirk, do we think about that 2007 MVP season, you know, the year that they were humiliated in the first round by the We Believe Warriors, or do we remember his memorable championship run? When we think of Steve Nash, does his two league MVPs elevate him over Shaq and Kobe? He only won one? As much as, you know, and I know it's not popular to say this because people like to run with what's popular, but I love Carmelo. I don't give a fuck what nobody on here thinks. And if people say that makes me whatever, kiss my ass. You won't say it in my face. You won't have a jawbone when I finish with you. But I love Carmelo as a basketball player. He won 2 league MVPs. But I'm very certain that Carmelo would trade in those MVPs for 2 championships. I know Charles Barkley would trade in an MVP for a championship. He said it before. So all of this is just coping to me. This is just What you have are guys like Tracy McGrady and Vince Carter who at their primes could have been MVP caliber candidates. These are guys who know individually they made their mark. So, of course, they're going to say the MVP is more valuable because that's something that they could have won. But honestly, I think that's bullshit, what they're saying, because Tracy McGrady was definitely ring chasing at the very end of his career. Vince Carter, I don't know if I'll say he was ring chasing, but he was definitely trying to put himself in a more favorable situation. But then again, didn't Vince Carter leave Toronto in a controversial, sort of messy way when he admitted he wasn't working as hard as he should have? And, this is a guy that the NBA was trying to make the face of the league, but he didn't want to deal with that pressure. He didn't want to deal with that responsibility. This is the same dude, Tracy McGrady, who now says championships don't matter. It's about MVP. Well, I'm not going to say it matter, but he says MVPs are more valuable. But it's the same Tracy McGrady that is having, using all these hypotheticals and whataboutisms. Oh, if you put me where Kobe is, we're winning championships. We're still winning 3. Come on, man. Championships matter, bro. And what that really is, too, now that I think about it a little bit, it's also somewhat envy toward guys like Kobe. That's what that is. And this whole narrative, this whole evolving narrative that individual stats are more important than championships, this ain't the shit I grew up hearing, bro. What you got, what's going on right now, in my opinion, is you have a bunch of disgruntled loser-ass players, right? When I say loser, I'm talking about from a financial standpoint or even a career individual standpoint. I'm talking about guys who never won championships. And this is why you got to be careful about who you listen to. You got people now who have podcasts, and they're disgruntled. They have these axes to grind against guys like Kobe and Mike, and they want to change the narratives, or they want to create these narratives, I should say, and change perception. They want to make it. They want to make basketball, which is a team game, an individual game. That's the legacy of LeBron James. That's the legacy of some of these guys out here today. They want to make this all about stats. It used to be about championships. Tim Duncan could have put up unbelievable stats if he was on a different team. But he sacrificed because he wanted to win championships. They're trying to make this about stats. Now you got idiots trying to say Giannis is greater than Tim Duncan. I mean, it's crazy, man. They're really trying to make this an individual sport. And this is why I don't respect these guys, man. But anyway, that's all I got to say about it, man. Tell me what you guys think.